Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. After a brief hiatus, Sridhar Chityala ji is back and we are going to talk about a very important topic, tariffs, the short-term and long-term effects of tariffs, who wins, who loses and all that stuff. Let's welcome Sridhar Chityala ji. Sridhar ji, Namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. How are you, sir?
Namaste, Namaskar. Doing very well, sir, and Almighty's blessings. So glad to be here to discuss this topic. Sorry.
Thank you so much, sir. Sorry about it. I thought you were done. I cut you off. My mistake. Viewers, today we have a small slide deck that Sridhar Chityala ji will be presenting to. And I hope you all have liked this video because we never know about notifications from YouTube these days. Let's go ahead and start the slide deck, sir. Sir.
Okay. The game of tariffs, it obviously is going to have far-reaching consequences in the next, 3.5 years as this gets rolled out. But there always is a lot of emotion that gets played out. But we try to present the data and what the current administration is attempting to do, and one can make your own judgments based on that.
Next one, please, sir. Sir.
Yes. The tariffs, what are the three important elements that we would be looking at in the days and weeks and months ahead? One, the turbulence, which is namely, there is going to be a turbulence. And, the tariff delays may be temporary in terms of the start dates, but it has consequences which will go well beyond what happened when the tariffs were introduced in 30s, and then it reached the peak in 70s, and then it began to taper off. Around that time, you'll see a chart. It went from 10 to 15%, and then it rolled back. Now with the current, let's just, okay. Yeah. Second is the import implications, which is, three countries make up $1.3 trillion of the $3.2 trillion trade deficit. That is what Trump and his administration is looking at, and it's obviously strategic implications, which means that you're going to see gyrating portfolios and gyrating market aspects. The two things: one is the equity markets, and second is going to be the FX markets. You're going to see some interesting kind of market reactions between those who believe in and those who support tariffs versus those who don't support tariffs.
Next one, please, sir.
So where are we today within US, and what does it mean? We'll present a chart. Then the question was globalization, an ill-conceived concept that unduly favored one nation. There was some element of acceptance. And then what happened? China was let in. And when China was let in and everybody expected the markets to open up, they didn't open the markets. And you can see they have been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the tariffs, which is what is causing problem. Then the NAFTA, North America Free Trade Agreement was signed. That brought Mexico and Canada and consequences into the US market. So we look at all of this data because the three big drivers of these tariffs were China and Canada and Mexico. And we look at the numbers and why the Trump administration is taking a very hard stance. Next slide.
Next one, please. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know whether you all can see it. You can expand this slide. You can see that the base rate of the China tariff was around 10%. Now it is going to be somewhere close to 20 to 25%. 25% is what is levied. Some negotiations are going on, to recalibrate that. And then you have the Mexican tariffs, and then you have the Canadian tariffs. They are also kind of sliding between 25 and 20%. Now, this is what some of the negotiations that are going on between the governments as a quid pro quo kind of observation. So we look at each of these, where these things are going to be applied and why it's being applied. Is obviously auto sector is one, pharma sector is one, Semiconductor industry is another. Canada is around the petroleum products. Mexico is around the auto car products. China is around the consumer electronics, machinery, etc. So these are the specific areas where they have targeted. You have also seen, as Trump came in, that he halted the sale of US steel, and he said that is core of the manufacturing. And so therefore, you need to kind of, if you want to put capital to rebalance and allow US steel to grow, you can do it. But I'm not going to sell US steel, because that just basically gives away some of the core platform in terms of the manufacturing. So this has been the discussion that is going on. We'll now look at some of the numbers as we go into the slides.
Sir, Sridharji, just 1 second. I want to, viewers, this appears best if you look at it on your TV. Many of you have switched to watching the videos on TV. This one will make a lot of sense, because Sridharji has given an effective date. It's not everything kicking in all at once. Is it coming in at different timelines? And it's also not across the board. It is a few things are now, a few things are later. But I'm very interested in knowing about China, sir. China, it says that there will be tariffs on soya beans by China. The last time they did that, that is during the first term of Trump. Soya beans, China said that we are no longer going to buy from US. Instead, we are going to buy from, I think, Brazil, if I remember correctly. How did that play out? Because we have to get some idea of what happened before. How was the response? How did the correction happen? Over to you, sir.
No, I think that again, if you recall, during that period, we touched on this, the soya beans and China shifting. But to some extent, that was offset by, that part of the supply was offset by other countries. So therefore, it didn't have a material kind of consequence on the price. And we'll see that in the in one of the slides, that the tariffs that happened between 2017 and 2019, which Sree is alluding to, the net effect of that was the increase in inflation was no more than 2%, the consequences of that. So therefore, which the importers passed on the cost to the consumers, but the 2% didn't have material impact, because the cost of capital, the interest rates were substantially low, and the energy prices were substantially low. So it didn't impact the wallet of the average consumer, but it did hike the cost by about 2%, Sree.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's get back to the slide deck. Next slide, please. Yeah, sir.
Okay, now tariff rates, you can see I touched on this, in the 1930s it commenced, it went from 15% to 20%. The whole construct of the globalization was you buy from low cost and offer it to globalize the supply, buy it from, import it from the low cost, and power the consumer in terms of his purchasing capacity. And then, of course, you in the process, you help those countries which are exporting to naturally kind of evolve and become mainstream trading community, and also lifting the affluence. So many ways today, the way Trump would, or the Trump administration would argue, is the US goodwill in terms of accepting that model of importing, is eventually hurt, because many of the countries still had tariffs and had domestic protection of their markets. For example, if you take Japan, rice. If you take China didn't allow for a considerable period of time access to its markets, which this is what has been Trump's point. And post NAFTA, the same problem shifted to Canada and Mexico. So all these things seems to indicate, while you are trying to harmonize the market, there has not been a level playing field in terms of universality in terms of import-export access to the markets. So this is the reason why this whole tariff game has commenced. Also, in the longer term, there is whether US will be manufacturing anything if the rate at which everything is getting outsourced to the other countries.
Here are some very interesting numbers. So the total net import from the US was 3.24 trillion worth of goods in 2024, and 1.3 trillion is made up by just 3 countries, and they are the ones making the most amount of noise, Sridharji.
They are the ones, and they have been the biggest beneficiaries, Sriji. Let's not forget. So if you take, for example, if you go to the next slide,
yeah,
you can see the Mexico, Canada, China account for 1.3. What's Mexico? 506 billion. What's China? 439 billion. What's Canada? 4.3. So this is where your rough 1.3 trillion dollars come. Look at the bottom of the table is India, which is around $87 billion worth of imports, right? Of the 3.4 trillion. Now, the point that is the situation is, if you take the Mexico case, so a lot of the automobile stuff is coming into United States. If you take into China, the heavy machinery, the chips, and even a lot of the retail goods are coming in. Canada, the single biggest is the petroleum products. Remember, between 2020 to 2024, many of the oil projects were shelved, including Keystone, which runs into Canada, right? And they all had consequences to the US economy. What we are saying is the net impact will I don't want you to change the slide. The net impact of this is somewhere close to $560-600 billion net impact, which is exports and imports. The net impact is going from these 3 countries is greater than 550 to 600 billion, or close to 600 billion annual. That's a very big number in terms of the deconstruction of the industry within the United States. And these are the people who have voted in this election because they want these jobs back in United States. They want these industries back in United States. But the numbers tell you that, the staggering numbers in terms of the amount of imports that United States is slowly kind of, absorbing without a significant kind of consequence.
Next one, please. Sir.
Yeah. The total U.S. trade deficit is 1.2 trillion. I mentioned this number 520 is attributed to these 3 countries. Now, the question is, can this 529 billion, if you salvage even 300 to 400, can you revive your manufacturing industry? And what could be the cost? We'll discuss the cost part of it. By the way, folks, I know some of the people may kind of say, okay, 2 Americans trying to say, the American version. But the story is, this is data. That's why we have given data. So you can go back and check data. So don't speak without, don't kind of critique us, arbitrarily. This is data. Yeah.
Sridharji, don't heed that, sir. 𝗙𝗏𝗎𝗍 𝗲𝗄𝐴 𝗪𝒂𝒐𝒪𝒃. We have, it is our duty to present the data and tell the story around that. Don't worry about, bouquets and brickbats. It's all right. Let's do our job. We are doing a fantastic job. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm just trying to caution people that if you want, you can read these slides as many times as possible. We have used Bloomberg, we have used US Commerce, we have used other agencies. So we brought this data up together for people to kind of look at the data rather than emotion. By the way, India also protects its markets, right?
Big time. Yeah.
No, so Modi is a very good business guy, right? He's a businessman. So he said, 80 billion is going, no problem. I'll cut it to about 50%. I'll be below that 5% threshold. What will I do? You give me the oil at the same price as Russia, then I will kind of, give you the supply, the thing comes down. Trump says, no problem. Okay, I may add a little bit, but I'll give you gas as well as oil. So they're really targeting the liquefied gas, LNG, which is India is going to be one of the biggest consumers. But anyway, that's a separate separate story. But if you take a look at these are all various countries. The blue is Mexico. Then the kind of what you call little light blue is Canada. If you see that 2015 to 2024, you see how much of Mexican imports has increased, almost from nothing in 2015. Look at Canada, not even a blip in the ocean in 2000. But look at today, Canada. That's the central one. And then the third is obviously China. China was big in 2022. I mean, China also faced the consequences of this is Biden administration, the chip. And that's the reason why you have seen reduction in Chinese imports into United States. But the chart lays out in very clear terms how this minus $500 billion contribution kind of comes from. And in 2022, it was peak at about 600 billion negative from these three countries. That's a significant kind of consequence in terms of economic development internally in the country. When you begin to put everything away and say, I'll buy it, that means you're killing your industry.
Next one, please. Sir.
Looking at one level deeper across, these are the, cars, petroleum, computer components, heavy machinery dominated the imports. Now we'll go to the next slide. Okay. Now this is, you can see car. 35% of the cars imports came from Mexico. 14% came from Canada. And 50% came from China. Okay. So there are four graphs, and others are little blip in the ocean.
Sir, minor correction, sir. 50% is from the rest of the world for cars.
Yes,
China is not a big player.
Yes, I'm sorry. My apologies. Yeah.
No
China is a blip in the cars. Okay. 50% from rest of the world. Then if you say crude petroleum, I told you that Canada was the biggest contributor that made up the 59% and Mexico 7%. Then you go to phones. 10% came from Mexico, a very small percent, almost negligible from Canada. 43% came from China and 46% from rest of the world. Then if you take computers, 32% came from Mexico. Isn't it a surprising number? I think it's a very surprising number.
Very true.
People wouldn't have even looked at that. And, historically, and then 28%. Now, the question that comes up, which is we will do in another show, how much of this was very cleverly routed by the Chinese through Mexico?
I was going to come to that. So the Mexico portion is looking bigger than it is because of this hidden Chinese component. I've been saying this for a while. Sir, please go ahead.
No, I think that, we will probably do another story on ASEAN. The ASEAN is facing exactly the same consequences, but China being a good big brother, they have accepted. So China uses Cambodia. China uses Vietnam. China uses Thailand. They use that and try to send the goods in as made in Thailand. Now, what's happening in this consequence? What is happening as a result is that some of the local stuff, besides what comes from China, they're all having an impact on the labor force in these countries. So, Mexico, you take a look at the car parts. 46% of the car parts is imported from Mexico. It's not as though the whole thing the Mexican manufacturing industry has gone gangbusters. Okay, 11% is coming from Canada. And then only 8% is coming from China. What percentage of the 46% is Chinese is something that we will dig deeper. We are looking at this now from a macro level. We'll get into micro level in one of the shows, and 35% from rest of the world. So what this shows is, over a period of time, you can basically see how these three countries have dominated relative to the rest of the world as a percentage of exports coming from them. from these three
Very
countries.
true. Very true. Very true. Next one, please. Sir.
The largest imports had a decrease of import costs as a percentage of total cost. This is what I said. It's probably 2%, and most of it was absorbed and passed on. That is, these leading up to 2024. Then we'll look at 2025, what the consequences could be.
Next one, please. Yeah.
See, and the tariffs were imposed that time. The cost increase were no more than 2%. This is the prior Trump administration. And companies passed on to the customers, and the marginal impact on price was minimal. So it was absorbed. That is to your question, Sriji, which is to say what happened at that point of time. Yeah. But it didn't have, in a sinking US economy with deficits, and you can see what is going on in the 𝗏𝗏 program, and you can see how much of money was diverted as a result of the US aid kind of programs, and money unaccounted for in the Ukraine war, etc., etc. It's all, kind of big topics. But the important thing to consider here is, if you think about the Inflation Reduction Job Improvement Act of Biden, it's $1 trillion. Didn't make material difference. You have still sitting here 1.3 trillion, close to 600 billion of cost sitting there, and you're not taking that out. And how can you kind of improve the jobs in the US economy? So they never presented this picture in terms of the import-export imbalance and the consequences to the US economy.
Sir, next one. Yeah.
Okay, what does this all mean? It means that we are in a very, very fluid situation. It has geopolitical, it has risk and uncertainty on two fronts: geopolitics and markets. Markets will continue to be volatile. Why? So when these tariffs come in, if many of the manufacturing industries within US were reliant on this as a source of supply, they have a narrow window of time to recalibrate their supply chains and look at new ways without a significant amount of cost, because it's not a 10%. These are all 25% plus, or 20 to 25% hikes, which is a significant kind of a cost. It is estimated, I don't know how, we have to see how it goes. The average cost to a US consumer could be anything between $2,000 to $5,000 annual basis as a result of these changes. But it is also about the bringing parity around import exports and bringing manufacturing into US market rather than completely killing the manufacturing. So this is the substance of the story, Sriji.
Thank you so much, Sridharji. If I have to summarize, all the story of tariffs is directed at one and only one country. This country has found new ways to try and get into the United States and try and escape the tariff. For example, they have built huge industrial cities in Mexico, right under the nose of US. What was Biden doing? What is the famed CIA doing? Where the heck were you, Mr. Brian? What's his name? Bill Burns? Anyway, so these are all, sir, we have done incalculable damage to ourselves by letting this band of bandicoots rule. Unfortunately, we've told this thing from every rooftop. People didn't listen. At least some people woke up, and somewhat parity has come back in 2024. But for how long and how effective? So I want you to put on an American hat now and tell us, how effective do you think this is going to be? Can China be curbed, or do they have any other new tricks up their sleeve?
I think first and foremost, as an American, this is being done with three important elements in mind. US is not a freebie. There has to be a fair dinkum in terms of import, export, and access to markets. That's number one. Number two, which is even very important, if you're going to impose tariffs on US and prevent access, then there is a price to pay. That's number two. And number three, which is even more, how to revive industry, because this whole globalization concept had no set of enforceable rules. Remember that nothing has been enforced as far as everything, patents, prices, fair and transparent labor laws and processes in China. Nothing is enforceable. So they're saying, okay, you guys have had, what is it that you're going to do to us that we have done all these years to you? Okay, that was the whole purpose of the WTO and the entry of China into WTO too, and also to other countries. So US is now raising the right flag and wants to bring manufacturing back into United States and create high-end jobs. We have lost the engineering talent. We have lost most of the talent that comes into Silicon Valley is basically through migration process. Once upon a time, we had industrial engineering all around United States. It's lost. So I think that is what we are trying to kind of revive, Sriji.
Thank you so much, sir. And you can already see a lot of noise being made and interesting things are coming out. One congressman who got walked out of that address, I don't know if you watched that address, Sridharji, a certain Al Green, and he's now come out on record, and this has come in Chinese newspapers and Chinese websites that have been since translated. The guy was getting 10 million a year from China.
Yeah. I mean, this is not the topic here. The amount of payouts that many of the people, both on both sides of the aisle, got from Ukraine. That's a separate topic, separate day. So there's a lot of people paid. I mean, I want to be politically correct. There was also a significant amount of manufacturing shift, what they call as the honey trap game, that was very well played out by China over 20 years.
Sir, we are still reeling from fan. I don't know how many more fans exist. How many have fanned out across the width and breadth of the country of United States? Thank you so much, Sridharji. Let's take a few questions, sir. We have a few questions from our viewers. Magnet Ranga wants to know, nation first is expected of any leader. Does Trump have a plan to manage the huge manufacturing costs, especially labor, which was probably why manufacturing went out of US in the first place?
Yes, I think that there's a very clear thinking behind how to revive. It's not by cutting wages of these people, but it is through productivity measures. Much of the United States improvement in costs was achieved through industrialization and productivity. So we are now in the world of AI and robotics. So as opposed to 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So we need to, United States needs to bring it back, bring back, some of this and let go or punish people who have exploited, in an undue manner. To answer your direct question, which is namely, yes, they have a plan to bring the cost down.
Next one, please. Rational Human wants to know, Sridharji, what are the impacts of reciprocal tariffs on IT services as the IT exports are in surplus? This is as far as India is concerned.
Yeah, I think that the IT has not come into the perspective. They are looking at India as a holistic block in terms of export, import, and seeing, where India can bridge the gap. Remember, a lot of the IT exports, a lot of the IT services are done through two ways. One is captive centers that India has, that United States has established in India. That's one. Capital deployed profits go back to these companies. Second is through the H-1B visa process, which has been kind of legally used. Where they, many Americans go and work in India. So therefore, as far as the IT services, they have not specifically targeted that. There's a number of IT technology people sitting in the Trade Council of Trump from the Silicon Valley and other parts. I think what he would be doing it is a bulk, which is namely, how do you cut? Because India is receiving capital, India is receiving trade. So there is going to be a mechanism to say, what can you do which you're doing with others? Why not you do with me? That's going to be the approach.
Next one, please. Maithili wants to know, Namaskaram, what was the need for Trump to come out with a statement that US has exposed India? What is it that has been hidden for them to expose? Such derogatory statements need to be acted on.
I don't think that there's anything. You see, this is why it becomes very emotive. Again, if you recall, in DGI we had covered, United was the fourth largest supplier of oil. It had come from nowhere and it became fourth. Then during the past 4 years, post Russia's invasion, trade sanctions were imposed and India recalibrated its model. And to the extent today, Russia is a significant supplier. And so what Trump is saying is that, hey, we need to look at your numbers and we need to see, you have taken, strategic leverage of the opportunities without being kind of compliant. Now, that's not derogatory in itself because Modi and Trump are negotiators. We shouldn't, his statements may be, hey, if I don't kind of step in, you're going to continue on that path. Now, I'm stepping in and I'm asking you to, I'm giving you capital and I'm giving you a lot of access to my markets. How are you going to reduce my deficit? What is it that you are buying from others we can supply to you at a price? This is what he is trying to communicate, because such a negotiation has not happened.
Next one, please. Manov-san wants to know, are markets really reacting to Trump's tariffs or are they just citing that as an excuse for their usual periodic profit-taking need? That is, those who are leveraged can falter on lack of rate cuts.
No, this is as a result of uncertainty on the tariff and the deployment. This is as a result of how industries need to, in United States, notably need to rebalance the supply chains, and what would their economic outcome or economic activity look like. And there could be large cap and mid cap, most notably those companies, and that's what you are seeing. This is on the US markets. On the rest of the world, remember, this is a source of income for all these exporters, and for them, there is a reduction, which means it has also consequences to them in terms of their recalibration of the labor force. There's also consequences of the currency. So this is a market tariff-ridden market gyration that is shaping up the market volatility, not profit-taking.
Sir, I want to bring up a picture about the tariff differences between India and the United States. I'll just present that because that's something that we need to understand how the change is there. How much was the imbalance? Just give me 1 second, sir. I'm presenting, let's see, I need to make this thing bigger. Oops. Okay. Are you able to see it, sir?
Yeah. Faced by India in each other's markets and tariff differential in percentage. Sorry.
So you can see across the line, with the exception of one category, India was uniformly laying higher tariffs on US imports. So this is what I think he was alluding to. We have to accept something. We have to accept. I mean, India was being protectionist, was trying to save its domestic sectors, and that's why this thing came about this way. And now there is a rethink. But India gains a lot of the stuff. India, if it wants to be a counter force for China, it needs to do some of these things right. The trade unions like the CITU rascals who have been trying to stop Samsung manufacturing, these people have to be put in their place. This is no way in the country. And why are you guys not getting upset about it? Those of you who are saying that, you know, it was wrong of Trump to say what he said, why are you not commenting on what the CITU goons have done? They've destroyed some of the plant complexes, especially in Apple manufacturing place. A lot of stuff hasn't come out, viewers. So understand that India has a great opportunity, but India needs to move faster. It is moving, but it needs to move even faster. There is one direction in which it can go, and you can completely transform country. Sir, back to you.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a very good summary by you, Sriji. But take a look at, I want to pick some of the elements here. Take a look at the agriculture, 37.7%. The whole market is in agro industry is protected. That's a significant tariff. Okay, now automobiles, 24.1%. Okay, let's kind of look at a very specific number, which is machinery and computers, 6.6%. Remember, that's through negotiation. It has come to 6.6%. And what does US do on India? To 1.3%. So there, and 10.4% on textiles and clothing. This is the reason why when you go to a large set of retailers in US, you will find made in Nicaragua, made in Mexico, made in Bangladesh, made in Pakistan, made in Vietnam, because you've got 10.4% tariff. This is how the textile manufacturing has had significant impact in the as an export from India into United States. So you are beginning to see beginning to see some of these consequences, but it is being recalibrated. There's no doubt under Prime Minister Modi. They're going step by step and dealing with it, factoring into account that there are domestic politics as well. But the tariffs kind of speak out. Mind you, with President Trump, there's no question of soft words, mild words, politically correct words. He has been what he has been, and that's how he plays the game. If you had seen the tug of war between him and J.D. Vance, you have Vice President and President both aggressive and assertive. With the Ukrainian, President, Mr. Zelensky. So it was not a very easy kind of a conversation, and he calls the meetings in front of the people. But that's how it is. One has to kind of get thick-skinned and keep moving forward.
So there is also a counter argument we want to provide that India imports 3 times what it exports to US. If you take away the energy part, other things India is importing a lot. For example, aircraft, right?
Yeah.
And so from the United States, 6.3. How much is it in United States? I think 6.3%. 6.3% of India's imports are coming from the United States. Like you said, the imbalance is LNG and crude. If US can match the price of what India is getting from Russia, then you have a parity, and then people can move forward. I think US should be open to it. The last time, sir, we can take away the text. It's a little too small to read, but the idea is that there is easily the gap can be bridged. So last time, if I remember correctly, when India stopped getting from Iran, and it was compensated by US providing to India at same terms or near at same term, but India had to pay for it in dollars, but US brought in a lot of FDI, which compensated again, which gave them the money to pay in dollars again. That is how you have the current account today, a surplus close to $600 billion. This was thanks to Trump and Modi doing the deal in his first term. Talk to us a little bit about that, because in this term also, I'm hearing talks about a place called Monkey Island off of the coast of Texas, where it's a huge LNG area. You can get it from there. And I think India, they're trying to get something where rain or shine for the next 20, 30 years, India will take a certain amount of output from there. So it's as if India owns that place because you can get guaranteed output from there. But is it better to do it from there or to do it from a place such as Saudi Arabia or Qatar, for example, and let US and Qatar do the adjustment in books?
Qatar is the largest importer of LNG and other forms of commercial gas. Yeah, so the largest exporters. India imports from them. US is number 2, but US is saying that there is enormous potential for US to offer and take this because of the future needs. Everything is India's future demand is very high based on urbanization, consumption, affluence that is going on. There should be a long-term contract signed, and that should be, the purchase of gas, the export of gas from US should be somewhere between $5 trillion and $10 trillion overall. So I think that target they have picked up already, Sriji. So you may see that. So you may also see the increase in petroleum products, an increase in export, refined petroleum products being exported from Indian refineries to meet the US demands. Not only US demands, but it may export to US importers. And that's also another area that's being looked at. The reason is these are big ticket items. These are huge items in terms of the export imports. India will not be able to match China in other areas, maybe automobile sector, but automobile sector, India is already directing itself towards the ASEAN and Asian markets rather than the US markets. Pharmaceutical industry is another area that they may look at. But the big ticket items for US India is clearly on the energy side of the business, defense side of the business. They want more procurement from US. You may also see with Marco Rubio, India may get access to special machinery and they may redraft the partnership. And the third area is around satellites and commercial satellites. In the United States being leveraged and Indian assets being leveraged. So defense, energy, communications, and is obviously IT will continue to be. It's a relatively small portion, but you will see IT will continue to be another area of dominance region in terms of achieving parity and being within that 5% gap.
Thank you, sir. Next one, please. Sridhar Chityala wants to know, sir, how can we deal with Trump about tariffs cleverly without getting our goodwill damaged? I think that's what we discussed just now.
Right now, yeah, exactly.
Live and Let Live wants to know why someone vandalized in New York. Although Indians support Trump, do you think Trump will lose power after 20th April unless Trump really do something which he did not significantly? Live and Let Live, it is not New York, it is LA, Chino area. It's a suburb of LA. I think he's talking about the Swaminarayan Mandir, sir, BAPS Swaminarayan Mandir. That was graffiti vandalized. These are all urchins. You know who they are, troublemakers, last croak of a certain group. Sir.
Why will he lose power after April 20? I don't understand. I mean, so the story is...
some astrologer would have said something, sir.
Sorry, we can't respond to astrological questions. He is the president. They got a Senate majority. They got a House majority. So therefore, unless he has a health issue, but I think that... well, by the way, 75% of the 75% of the American people have given a thumbs up to his assertive stance and exposing and showing to the Americans that he means business and he wants to do the right things that he promised in the elections.
Yes. Next one, please. Arsenal Forever wants to know, will Southeast Asia face tariffs? If yes, which country will be most affected?
Number one is China. So that's already there. Korea will be affected. Vietnam will be affected, and surreptitious exporting as a backdoor for the Chinese, they will be affected. But they have a stable and trustworthy partnership with countries like Japan and Singapore and so on. So I think that it'll be an even keel. But the story is ASEAN has problems from both China and US in terms of rebalancing this 5 to 10% gap.
Naresh Neelakantan wants to know, Namaskaram to Sree as well, Sridharji. How come the US allowed Chinatown in spite of already prevalent downtowns earlier?
Look, I think that some of these things can't be uprooted overnight. And what happens if Xi Jinping moves on and someone else comes over? There could be a far more non-confrontational approach in terms of the relationship. US realizes China is an important as the world's second largest economy. US realizes India is important as the fourth largest economy, or fifth largest economy, and very soon to be fourth largest economy. So it's, you don't see much confrontation with Japan. You see a lot of confrontation with EU because EU has gone completely woke, and many of its policies are not consistent with what the present administration is trying to do. So that is why they don't pay for many of the things. They don't pay. United States pays. For example, United Nations, US is the major. NATO, US is the major. WHO, US is the major. Who are the beneficiaries? Who are the beneficiaries of this? And who are the people who are directing these organizations? So this is Paris Accord, the climate. That's one of the biggest kind of amount of money that has been spent. And everybody says it is required. Okay, that's required. Okay, spend it. But what is the economic consequence? Has it been quantified? People have written theories, but has it been quantified? This is where there's confrontation between United States and EU, at least within the Trump regime.
Next one, please. Racheshwar Nath Rana wants to know, Sree sir, for how long can America keep minting notes even after 36 trillion in debt? Sridharji, sir, you're over to you.
Well, I think that they will continue to print money, and that's because it's a world stabilizing currency. I just want to point out, I don't know whether we have, maybe next show.
We should do one on next show, sir. We'll do next one. The importance of the dollar. Let's just title it the importance of the US dollar. That's the title. We're going to do the next show whenever Sridharji has the data. As you can see, viewers took several days to put together this data. It's not easy. So we would really appreciate it if you can share these video links with like-minded folks. Sir, over to you.
Yes, I think the one point that I wanted to make, we'll put up the data, which is US's net asset balance, or net asset balance, assets, liabilities, public liabilities, private liabilities, corporate liabilities, and the debt. If you add all those numbers up, it's still close to $200 trillion plus.
Positive.
So this this $36 trillion is minuscule in relative speaking. This is all being played out as though United States is going to collapse tomorrow. Remember, on $110 trillion market cap, US companies is close to $60 trillion market cap. That's the assets of US companies. So therefore, and they all do business in US dollar. Then when you look at the reserves, again, we had given these numbers in DJI. We'll recap these numbers. Close to 60% or 65% of the reserves is in US dollar. You take India. Okay, now India's is around $650 billion in reserve. 70% of that is in US dollar. So I don't know why people are so perturbed on the debt, as long as you have the ability to service on the balance sheet of the US, and we again had covered in at least 2-3 shows the annual budgets in the 2017 to 2020 or 2018 to 2020 timeline. 2020 to 24 we have not covered. We'll probably cover one of that in the shows to see where the revenues are and where the expenses are and how they can overcome the issue around the paying the interest on the debt.
Next question from Manchanahalli Bhujanga. How long will it take for Clinton types and Wall Street to ship out blue collar jobs to third world again?
Look, I don't have a quantified number. I don't think I would be able to answer this question, without kind of looking into broad data. But this is a far-reaching question that is being raised.
Thank you so much, sir. And that was a wonderful session. Viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back with Sridharji very shortly. The first one will be, of course, about the United States dollar. Sir, I have been doing a series on gold. And I've done 4 episodes so far: US gold, India gold, world gold, and so on and so forth. And I would love for your perspective on this, because I'm hearing the title I've already framed. I mean, we can tweak it a little bit, the importance of the United States dollar. What I'm hearing is that the United States is doing a re-valuation of how much gold it physically has, whether it is Fort Knox or US Fed or all the other banks where it is being stored, to get the number. And the number, it is believed, is not 8,000 metric tons, but closer to 14 to 16,000 metric tons, double of what it is. See, this is a surprise that people are thinking that, oh, US has actually doesn't have the gold. So something is in the works. You and I can talk about this, sir, because something we can say, something we can't say, because if we are wrong, then we'll be horribly wrong. However, viewers, watch what Trump is doing about crypto reserve. There's a reason why that is being done. Very, very important. Very important. Sridharji and I have talked about crypto. I am usually the little bit pessimist. He's the more optimistic person in this. But it gives you a perspective, how people are thinking and so on and so forth. So thank you so much, sir. We'll be back again very shortly on the importance of the US dollar. Sir, you have permission to change it or tweak it. But this is something we need to talk, because unless you understand the importance of a currency, everything else comes back to this. Oh, this is being done this way. This is being done that way. We have to understand data. What does the data say? Where does the data point to? Sir, your concluding remarks.
No, I think that it's very interesting that you touched on 2 things. One is US dollar, second is gold.
Yeah.
Gold is the go-to currency in the current turbulent market situation, because it is not centered to any of the tariff related issues. So there's a percentage allocation going to gold besides fixed income. Now, the other question, that the point that you made is what is the truth behind US dollar and why it is important? And second, is the US dollar in Fort Knox, is the gold reserves therefore as a dollar value, then the corporate assets of United States and the government assets of United States in dollar value terms. Then finally, they are adding now crypto. Is that going to be another $1 trillion, $2 trillion kind of a reserve? It's very interesting. As soon as the reserve was announced, probably it was in works, I don't know, Reliance announced crypto in India.
Right.
And he doesn't move unless he smells something, right? Therefore, I think that the $36 trillion is just basically going to be is manageable. Of course, Trump's regime ends in 4 years. Whosoever comes, what they do. But there's a significant amount of waste in the balance sheet, in the income expense. And there's a significant amount of costs allocated to many programs which has no direct bearing on the income of or the revenues of the US balance sheet. That's where the problem is. And he's trying to point out the data, and we are trying to point out the data. We have been trying to point out the data. You can be qualitative, it doesn't get you anywhere. You have to be quantitative for you to understand the numbers. That's the only way you know what bites you.
Thank you so much, sir. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. I think we'll be back next Sunday, Sriji.
Yes. Same time next week. Yes.
Next week, and then we'll touch the dollar.
Yes.